Da 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 da. Welcome back to Disenfranchised. I'm Karen Bulinski Mathison, founder of The Naked Grief and creator of the Disenfranchised podcast that reveals disenfranchised grief in each episode of Friends. This week's episode is season 2, episode 15, the one where Ross and Rachel, but it's also got recliners and taboo romance mixed in. So we're finally at the big one. Not the one with the Super Bowl. That was a couple weeks ago. We're talking about the episode where the tension finally snaps. The stars align literally in a planetarium. And we get introduced to the greatest mustache in sitcom history, Dr. Richard Burke. While the title focuses on the part of Ross and Rachel's relationship, there's a whole lot of unrecognized grief simmering under the surface of these leather recliners and age gap flirtations. The episode moves pretty fast. Joey's Days of Our Lives money is finally burning a hole in his pocket. So he does what any red-blooded 90s bachelor would do. He buys 2 massive leather recliners and a TV big enough to see the pores on a news anchor's face. And remember, it's the 90s, folks, so it's not a flat screen. It's a TV that takes up an eighth of the room. Chandler and Joey basically merge with the furniture, refusing to move for the rest of the episode. It's the ultimate inside good, outside bad manifesto. So meanwhile, Monica got a catering job. Her parents referred her to an old family friend, Dr. Richard Burke. First job she's had in a little minute. And Burke is played by the legendary Tom Selleck. He's 21 years older than Monica. He's a grandfather, and he's basically like a second brother to Ross and Monica's dad. Despite the creepy factor that's on paper, the chemistry between the two is undeniable. Part of why it lands that way is the physical transformation piece that the show quietly takes in or bakes in. So Monica, we've learned, was a very large girl for a very long time. That size made her a little more insecure, less social. Believe me when I explain that you can be a larger person and take up less space. You just try not to be seen as much. You shrink. Well, Monica lost all the weight, and Monica became bigger in ego, confidence, all of that. So now people see her. So she's thin, she's attractive, she's a woman now, and the evolution of the physical identity helps make the chemistry between her and Richard feel fresh and less weird despite their history. Add in the fact that Phoebe is basically drooling over Richard Burke herself, referring to him as a James Bond, and affirming that the attraction is real. So her and Richard try and keep things platonic during the eye exam, but they really can't help themselves. So I did 2 images here. The first is the actual eye exam when the lights were off, and I tried to highlight it a little bit so you could feel that gaze between them. And then he gets nervous, right? And he's like trying to keep her there, but he's also trying to be professional. And he's like, oh, eye drops. So he turns behind him and he grabs these handfuls of drops. And that's what we have in the larger image of her taking them from him right before they embrace in a big kiss. So yeah, sometimes the best intentions of trying to keep things platonic doesn't always work. And then we have Ross and Rachel, and they're finally on a real official dating cycle. But they keep getting things pushed off because work keeps getting in Ross's way. And on top of that, as they start to get a little bit more intimate, when Ross touches Rachel's behind, Rachel starts giggling because it's Ross, and it's hard for her to process. It's that separation of the loss of the friendship as the beginning of the relationship pivots, for lack of a better word. So it's awkward and it's fumbled, and it nearly stalls out entirely until a late night work emergency at the museum leads to a romantic picnic under the stars in the planetarium. And they finally do it, wake up in a museum display, and get a very public wake up call from a group of school kids. Now, I wanted to take a minute and talk about those recliners. It's really easy to get stuck in the safety of not moving, just waiting for the floor to get warm. But that's exactly why we're building the Raw Reset. If you're tired of sitting in your unrecognized grief and staying stuck in the status quo because the whole world outside feels too heavy, the Raw Reset may be your path out. It's about getting off the furniture, stopping the avoidance, and doing the real raw work to move forward. It's recognizing your own cognitive behaviors and figuring out how to reprogram yourself in a new truth. Don't spend your life in the chair. Go to thenakedgrief.com and check out the Raw Reset today. What I have on the website that is free is a sample version of the more detailed version inside of the membership space. And before we jump back into identifying the characters in grief, let's also continue to talk a little bit about the naked grief. Because not all grief comes from death. It's job loss, career pivots, divorce, breakups, empty nests, moving, identity shifts, friendships ending, relationships beginning, the loss of the life you thought you had, or finding comfort in new furniture that you don't want to move from. At The Naked Grief, we offer support communities that meet you where you are without pressure, toxic positivity, or having to explain why it hurts. So again, check it out at thenakedgrief.com. Now, identifying characters in grief. At first glance, this is a happy episode. But at Disenfranchised, we look for the unrecognized grief hidden in the punchlines. Monica is experiencing taboo or judgment grief. She's found someone she genuinely connects with, but she is already grieving the loss of social normalcy. She knows the second she tells her friends, especially her brother Ross, she's going to face a wall of judgment. She is grieving the ability to simply be a woman in love without the, but he's your dad's friend, asterisk. Ross and Rachel are navigating transition grief. People don't often talk about the death of a friendship when it turns into a romance, but they are grieving the safety of the Platonic. That nervous laughter that Rachel has, that's not just funny, it's an emotional reaction to the loss of the dynamic they've had for years. And when you change the rules of a relationship, the old version of that relationship dies. So now let's play Name That Disenfranchised Grief. So what is disenfranchised grief in the context of this episode? It's the grief of that the world tells you that you aren't allowed to have because your situation is weird, funny, or wrong. The age gap, social taboo grief. When Monica admits she's dating Richard, Ross's reaction is exactly what she feared. He gets big brotherly and judgmental. And this is a classic example of how social taboos create a vacuum of support. When you date someone who doesn't fit the traditional mold, whether it's a significant age gap, a different background, or a family friend, the people around you often withhold their support. Same goes for dating too soon after widowhood or divorce, or even just a standard breakup. And think about how the support systems generally encourage. When it's the end of a relationship that doesn't result in a death, people are more pumped to get you back out into that pool. When a death's occurred, you're looked at a little funnier for getting out there too fast. But the loss that we're feeling is still the same. We lost a person that we were connected with, that we shared a life with. The difference is Somebody chose to walk away, and somebody's heart stopped. Wasn't their choice. If we treated each loss a little bit more empathetically, I think we'd all heal a little better. You end up grieving the shared joy you should have with your circle, and it's a silent, lonely weight that you carry when you have to defend your own happiness. I sabotaged relationships after I lost my husband because I got tired of feeling the daggers and the looks because I was trying to find new connection post loss. And then I started to feel guilty for being happy. And I ruined friendships and potential dates because I just thought I wasn't supposed to be happy. I had my chance. I had my 14 years of marriage, and that's all I was supposed to have. There's another layer here that makes the Monica and Richard connection psychologically believable. The chemistry doesn't feel like a continuation of an old dynamic. It feels like a disruption of it. Monica doesn't show up as the little girl Richard remembers. She shows up as a full-grown woman that he has to newly perceive. And Richard isn't being framed like just Jack Geller's friend either. He's carrying that full James Bond energy that Phoebe jokes about. That matters because Monica's physical evolution and Richard's suave presence together help explain why the attraction feels fresh enough to override the "this should be weird" alarm bells. And then the safety of the status quo. Joey and Chandler's recliners are a hilarious bit, but let's look at the mental health in TV shows angle. Their refusal to leave the chairs, their avoidance of the three-dimensional people, and their inside good, outside bad mantra, that's a fortress. Sometimes we cling to the status quo or literal furniture because the world outside is changing too fast. They're grieving the simplicity of their old lives because Joey became a big star, and before their friend group shifts into serious couples, they're holding on to the one thing that they can. So, analysis of friend support, or the lack thereof. The support in this episode is questionable, as always. Phoebe is the only one who truly encourages Monica, calling her a smitten kitten, but even Phoebe eventually gets sucked into the lazy boy vacuum. There's also a tiny physical moment in Rachel and Monica and Richard's early interaction that says a lot. That little mutual head tilt and head bob when they talk about his divorce, that is such a recognizable grief reflex. It's the same kind of body language, muscle memory people use when checking in on someone's pain after a death, a breakup, a layoff, or any other obvious loss. You can practically see Monica slip into a learned soft voice, tilted head, and say, "How you doing?" And Richard responds, "I'm okay." It's reflex response. It's automatic. It's relational and weirdly intimate because it signals, I know this is tender territory. It's a true grief tilt. Ross's support for Monica is non-existent. He centers his own discomfort over her actual happiness, and this is a major coaching moment. When someone you love tells you they are happy in a relationship that challenges your boundaries, your job is to hold space, not project your own scars. And we know that Ross has a lot of his own scars. On the flip side, the guys eventually do support Ross's transition into a relationship with Rachel, even if it involves making fun of his flock of seagulls haircut. They recognize that the friendship version of Ross and Rachel has to end for the couple version to begin. Some coaching moments navigating what will people think. If you're currently in a situation where you feel like your joy is being muffled by other people's expectations, here are a few things to remember. Reframing the nervous laugh. If you're going through a major life transition, a new job, a new relationship, moving cities, and you feel weird or giddy or even panicky, don't judge yourself. That is a valid emotion, and it's an emotional response to the death of your old routine, maybe even your old self. Notice the grief tilt. Pay attention to your body when someone shares something painful. Do you tilt your head, lower your voice, soften your face, or do that sympathetic bob? And that's not random, that's a learned grief care. Notice it because it can help you become more intentional about how you show up for people. The what if scenario. What if Monica lets Ross's judgment stop her? She would have missed out on one of the most significant, maturing relationships of her life. Don't let the fear of disenfranchised grief, the fear that people won't get it, keep you from living. And here's the thing. Richard was the love of her life until her and Chandler got involved. And if she hadn't have had that relationship with Richard, I don't know that she would have ever been fully ready for Chandler. That's just my perspective. I'd love to hear your opinions. And then acknowledging the transition, moving from friends to lovers or from one life stage to the next requires a period of mourning. It's okay to miss the way things were, even if where you are going is better. And then we've got the silent grief of disapproval. We see this all the time in our community. Someone starts dating a partner their family doesn't approve of, and suddenly they aren't invited to Sunday dinner. Or a woman decides not to have children, and her grief over the lost connection with her mother, who desperately wanted grandkids, goes unrecognized because she chose this. These are all the types of grief that don't get a funeral. There's no card for, I'm sorry, your brother's being a jerk about your new boyfriend, but the pain is real. This unrecognized grief can lead to isolation, much like Joey and Chandler in their recliners, waiting to see if the floor gets warm before they bother to save themselves from the fire alarm going off. So don't stay in the recliner. Ross and Rachel eventually figured it out, juice box and all. Monica and Rachel eventually went for it. They stepped out of the safety and into the awkward. If you're feeling stuck in a cycle of unrecognized grief, or you're navigating a transition that no one seems to understand, don't just sit there. Go to thenakedgrief.com and let's start talking about the stuff no one wants to mention. Next episode, we're diving into season 2, episode 16, the one where Joey moves out. You can already imagine the disenfranchised grief in this. Talk about transition grief. We're looking at the death of the roommate bond and the loneliness of making it on your own. Until then, keep your eyes open, unless you're at Dr. Burke's office. And remember, your grief is valid even if it's, a bit complicated. Da 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 da.